He that plays the king shall be welcome. His majesty shall have tribute on me. The adventurous knight shall use his foil and target. The lover shall not sigh gratis. The humorless man shall end his part in peace. And the clown shall make those laugh whose lungs are tickle of the steer. And the lady shall speak her mind freely, or the blank verse shall halt for it. What players are they? Oh, how chances it that they travel? Their residence both in reputation and profit were better both ways. Do they hold the same estimation they did when I was in the city? Are they so followed? It is not very strange. For my uncle is king of Denmark, and those that would make mouths at him while my father lived, now pay 20, 40, 50, 100 ducats apiece for his picture in little. Spread! There is something in this more than natural. Your philosophy could find it out. Gentlemen, you are welcome to Elsinore. Your hands come then. The appurtenance of welcome is fashion and ceremony. Let me comply with you in this garb, lest my extent to the players, which I say must show fairly outward, will seem more like entertainment than yours. You are welcome. But my uncle, father, and aunt, mother are deceived. I am but mad north-northwest. When the wind is southerly, I know a hawk from a handsaw. Welcome to the channel, hello. My name is Brian Jennings, the critical sorcerer, the psychic scientist, the millennial dragon. This channel exists to process my relationship with Quentin Tarantino. I am the reason, the actual reason, that Quentin canceled his film, The Movie Critic, last April. And the two of us have been embroiled in what has now become a legendary psychic siege for going on 2 years. So, I wrote him a series of letters about playing the lead, and he played his fucked up mind games. He's a psychic clairvoyant who likes to remote view people, right? He directs with his mind. That's what he does, right? And when I didn't bend to his psychic intention at a screening of Jackie Brown last year, right, where he was gonna let me question him about his book, Cinema Speculation, which I have somewhere, here it is, and then announced me as the movie critic. Right? I had a letter, right? He, again, right, like he plays fucked up mind games. These are the games that he plays, right? I wrote him a letter after he canceled the film. I wrote him another letter after Tribeca. Refused at the door both times, right? So, right, I asked him to sign my book, right? Here's my letter, right, which I've read here, right? That's his autograph right there. Right? I shoved it all the way up to his face, right? He stuck his nose up at me and turned his back on me, and so I did the same thing. And when I didn't give him what he wanted, right, he entered into a Faustian covenant, him and the people around him, to compel me to madness, right? Because I sent him a scene, right, so that I would blow my brains out and he could have my scene for free. Right? And so, right, after Tribeca, right, the first few weeks, he let me know that he hated him, right? And then at the beginning of August, right, he jumped into my mind, stole all my secrets, and said, oh, I want you to come to LA, right? And so I did, right? And then he revealed to me that he has a daughter, right? He doesn't have an adult daughter at all. He has a little girl. It's a little bitty girl, right? But, oh, I have this girl who loves you, right? And so that constitutes the content of my novel. I've written a novel of my experiences. It's called Building a Coven. Quentin has 2 women in his life, right? Quentin has a coven. Everything that you see revealed in the novel is a reflection of some psychological truth within them, right? I'm a gullible, trusting, loving guy, right? I felt bad about Tribeca. I felt bad about being a horse's ass, right? But, right? Dense braid of psychosexual bullshit, right, between August and the new year. On January the 1st, December 31st, right, specifically, right, I printed out the girl's picture. Her name's Allison Tarantino. I guess she doesn't know him. I don't really know. And I started remote viewing her. And within 2 or 3 days, she's a nasty bitch who gets pissed on. And then within another 2 or 3 days, right, he has no daughter. That it was all bullshit. It's all like a game. It's a sick game to him. Clairvoyance is a game to him, right? And so I could say something about him thinking that I was playing on some level. I guess that's like the only justification, right? But it's just evil. No, it's not. Like, there's no justification at all, right? There's no everything that he's done has been, right? Once he admitted to me he has no daughter, then I realized, oh, you just want me to blow my brains out. And I've been trying to come clean ever since, right? And from then, I had the thought, oh, what else is he prepared to do? And now he's stolen my wisdom, he's stolen my fear, and he's descended into palpable black magic evil, right? To try to give me AIDS, to try to poison my body, to try to destroy me, to try to kill me, right, with his mind, so that he can have my scene for free, right? And so that's what this channel is dedicated to talking about, to processing, right? Right? Everything that he said about the movie critic is bullshit. It's because of me. I wrote a savage essay reminding the world, right, that Cliff Booth and Brad Pitt are the same person, right? Brad Pitt beat up his wife on an airplane and got away with it. Cliff Booth killed his wife on a boat and got away with it. It's the same story, right? And so when Quentin says, oh, the continuing adventures of Cliff Booth that I sold to Netflix, he sold nothing, right? The continuing adventures of Cliff Booth is a fuck you to me, because he knows, right, that I'm calling him out. So, anyone who's interested in the things that he's actually been doing, you can watch my video, A Plea to the Pope. And it's as evil and degenerate as it gets. It doesn't get any uglier. I wanted to make a video because if you see, I have this number 5 right here on my shirt, right? Because I just went to my first audition since the movie critic has unfolded it. And I think that it went well. I got laughs. Right? But I didn't, of course, I don't know, I suspect there's a part of me that thinks that they're going to end up on this channel. Right? And so, right, what does Quentin have to say about it? I don't know. Everyone around him, right, they're just jackass yes men. That's all that's been occurring. Right? That when, like, he did, everything that he did, right, was so that he could say, oh, look, see, he's insane, right? It's not like, I'm not a dumbass for playing Russian roulette with my career. That's like, I'm not a dumbass, he's the dumbass, right? And I just believed him, right, because I felt bad, because I trusted him, right? And I wanted to make it right, right? And so the novel is about 130,000 words and growing, I work on it as much or as little as I want. And so, if you recall, we're going through this book, Spherical Models, right? And we're making all of the models. Here's an example, right? Here's another example, right? And what I'll say is I have the pieces all printed out, right? That we are doing it, right? As far as Quentin, right? I felt a hypodermic needle on Saturday because I hit a hemp joint like 3 or 4 times, and we're right there. Right? And so him or someone close to him, they resented me for being so close. I didn't make this what it is, right? That's like, right? This is why we're talking about it, right? Because like, I'm not so fucking dumb, right? As to spend hundreds of hours remote viewing someone, right? And never expect to reconcile with them. That's the pinnacle of hubris. Right? Because now they're so locked into my mind that it's done. It's done. Like, we're boom right there forever. We're a case study in remote viewing. Right? So, right, this is why I'm in fear. This is why I live in palpable fear. Right? This is why he lets me believe that there's assassins coming to murder me at all times. Right? That he plagues my mind with evil constantly because it's a fucking joke to him. Right? Here's how's this for an option, right? Did I not reach out to all of them and say, you ain't got to pay me nothing, right? You just have Quentin acknowledge me, denounce these tactics, and say that he doesn't want me to die. Crickets, right? They would, like everyone around him and everyone around him, would rather I continue saying, right, that he's debased his immortal soul to such an attenuated degree that nothing can save him. It's gone. They're like him and his wife, everyone around them, they're trashed spiritually, right? Can't stress that enough, right? And so I say that knowing, right, that as far as like being cool, right, like, oh, if you want to be cool, right, as far as like a movie star, right, like on Quentin Tarantino's terms, right, then I'm lost too, right? And I hated myself forever, right? But I've done a lot, right? I've done a lot, right? Threw myself onto the street, sacrificed my job that paid me a real salary, right? Right? Broke my body, right? Broke my mind of a sort. All to show him I'm sorry, but now it's done. It's done. I get it. I get it. You're ruthless, right? Like, congratulations, right? Anyone who's wondering about like what I'm talking about, right? Like just ask the director of the Tribeca Film Festival. She introduced both of them. Ask Robert De Niro. You ain't got to ask me, right? That they're like, that he's, right? And I see it now. He's just gonna lie forever, right? And if he's using my scene, which I suspect he is, because it's the most badass scene anyone ever sent him, right? Then he's gonna have to pay me. Right? Or he's going to have to assassinate me, right? And so he keeps me in fear perpetually. He does evil, dangerous, evil things to me, right? That if I put on him, anyone can do it, right? It's easy to be evil, right? Then he'll send people to murder me, like with guns. That he'll actually send people, right? Like where do you think all that violence in his films comes from, right? There's something within him, right? That's very askew and violent. So, right? I've talked about it a lot, but we have to talk about it every time, right? Clairvoyance, right? Psychic phenomenon, right? Is a latent bandwidth within the mind of man, right? Really within the mind of anyone, right? Because consciousness is diffused in every cubic centimeter of space, which I refer to as the celestial zephyr, or the divine light of deity, the impetus for motion, right? And though it is here, latent in everyone's mind, right, like being musical, right, like playing an instrument, it is not something that anyone can tap into or utilize. So we say that there's this boundary. Right? We say that, oh, there's your ignorance, right? That the mysteries are divided into two things. Right? And the first thing is the lesser mysteries, which is the boundary, right? That you draw it in the sand, right? The proverbial sand, right? The metaphysical sand. And on the other side of it is all the things that you can never know. And it can never be circumvented, right? You can get closer, right? But every time you get closer, it gets a little wider. Just like the Mandelbrot, just like all those beautiful fractals that we all know so well, right? This is the lesser mysteries. Who, what, when, where, right? You can answer all these questions, but why? Right? Absolute opacity, ignorance. You never circumvent it. Right? And so that division, right, is a leap of faith towards something. And what that something is either intelligent design or chaos. There's nothing else. And to distill it to an even simpler question, it is the question, which came first, thought or motion? Perhaps through some sort of chaotic happenstance, right? Space just exerted pressure through motion upon itself. That's right, seems ridiculous to me, right? But that's, like, you can allege that intellectually, and it holds just as much weight as any other theory, right? So you can say that life is accidental, that it's just an arbitrary, chaotic happenstance, right, of motion, right? But on the other side, right, the other direction with which to step over into that leap of faith, right, is the understanding that mind, that intellect, right, moves space. Right? This is the worldview that I hold. And the divine light of God arranges itself like a coin. That there's two halves, heads and tails, each equally noble, equally dignified, equally necessary. The first half of the coin is the structural scaffold, the subatomic, superatomic scaffolding, right? Quantum manifold electric waveform of probability, right? And so an infinite complex nesting of polyhedra, right? This is one example, right? Right? And these models are another example, right? Here's one, the truncated cube, right? The tetrahedron, right? That all these things are nested inside of each other. So perfect and absolute in their expression that they dissolve into seeming dead space. It's inert space, it's not dead space, right? Pribram and Bohm's holographic model posits that every cubic centimeter of space has within it, in terms of information, all of manifested reality, right? And this manifests, right? This exists perpetually in a state of rest as an infinite complex nesting of polyhedra like this, right? Inside of this, right? Inside of this, right? Inside of this, right? All within all perfectly nested, right? Diffused within that infinite complex lattice is the divine light of deity, commonly referred to as God, right? Yod-Heh-Voh, Jehovah, right? And this is the impetus for motion, right? That diffused throughout the subspatial structuring, right? Is a conscious exertion, is a conscious pressure. And both of these exist within each other perpetually in a state of rest until, right, the divine light of God seeks to express its knowing. And it does so by exerting pressure upon the structural scaffold, right? And so the dihedral, right, the angle, the angels of love with which the divine light imposes pressure upon it, right, is a reflection of what we see it materialize as manifested matter in the material world, right? So if it comes from the top, right, that's going to manifest one thing. If it comes from the bottom, it's going to manifest another thing. If it comes from the side, that's going to manifest another thing, right? On and on and on and on and on, right? If you say all of creation is inside of this, right? I've said it a dozen times, I'll say it a dozen more, right? Then you can close this in a sphere, cast a circle around it, and that's called a great circle. Each great circle has 360 degrees, each degree a potential vector of pressure upon the quantum spatial hologram, right? There's an infinite potential complex nesting of great circles around, right, the totality of the structural hologram, thereby giving you a window into the dignity of God's omniscience, right? Nothing else has ever been occurring, right? Through the arrangement of the dihedrals, right? Through the angle or angles, right? A compound of multiple vectors of pressure upon the spatial hologram, right? Is what gives space the ability to manifest all of life. Because as it's collapsing, right? As it's exerting a pressure upon the structural manifold, right? It's pushing space against itself, right? It's collapsing a large volume into a small volume, right? Which engenders electric resistance as space grading its friction against itself, right? And so the denser that it collapses, right, the greater the electric resistance until it becomes so great it can no longer remain inert space and erupts into incandescence as corpuscular matter. Right? First as light, right, and on and on and on down the periodic table, right? So at the highest levels of this, right, is complex biological unfoldment. It's equally intellectually valid, though I find it shallow, pedantic, and uninteresting to say that everything is accidental, right? You could say that, right? A biologist could tell you that 0.02% of the arrangements of A, C, T, and G offer palpable DNA that can yield complex life, right? Thereby, right, and just to be clear here, right, thereby, right, offering the argument that it statistically is far likelier that there is an intelligent design, because the likelihood of it accidentally occurring is exponentially higher, is exponential factors of magnitude greater, right, than the fact of arbitrary chaos happenstance, right? But at the end of this evolution, right, if you say mind is the progenitor of all things, that Plato's allegory of the cave has intellectual validity, that Russellian science has intellectual validity, right, is complex life, right, is atmospheric strata, mineral, vegetable, animal, man, right? And so man is the only creature that can offer a sincere perspective of veneration back upon its divine creator, right? As a sacrifice, as a prayer, as an act of charity, as a gesture of love and camaraderie and brotherhood, right? And so the highest expressions of man, right, must therefore by default be artists, right? Because you're channeling from the rhapsody of the eternal hologram out through the hands, through the mouth, right? And so in that most rarefied strata of artists, right, are these creatures that we refer to as clairvoyant and psychic, right? Because they're so tapped into the quantum hologram, right, that they can project their conscious awareness out, right, as a membrane of intention, right? And so these people, right, have a great responsibility indeed, right? Because they, right, and they alone, right, only this 0.0001% of the populace, right, can heal the sick, right, astral project, right, remote view, all of these things, right? And so on the highest levels of that idea, right, sees the medium, the adept, the student behaving like God the Father Yahweh, right? That the adept is, so God exerts a psychic pressure upon the quantum manifold, which is the structural underpinning within every cubic centimeter of space, right? It's a psychic pressure upon space, right? Which fractures the hologram, right? Based on the design, the dihedral angle with which the pressure is exerted upon the quantum hologram, right? And manifests something new thereby. Right? So on the crudest levels of that, right, to write a poem is the same thing. To write a song is the same thing. To paint a beautiful picture is the same thing. And on the highest level, right, is the adept, right, standing over someone who's terminally ill, right, and blasting their tumors with psychic radiation of intention and dissolving it back into nothingness. Right? And so on the lower end of that spectrum are characters like Sir Walter Raleigh, right? Who is documented as saving someone from a dangerously lethal case of gangrene by his grand cordial, right? Which is this tonic that he made, which is like coral and all these things, gold, and right? All the doctors said, no, that's done. Like, he's done. Like, make your peace with your maker. Like, you're on your way out. And he gave him a massive dose of this grand cordial, and it beat it. It beat it. It destroyed that fucking gangrene, and this guy continued living, right? And on the highest levels of that understanding, right, is someone is nuns healing the sick, is nuns taking cancer, right? Like pious, holy people taking cancer and diseases into them, right? And on the other side of that, right, which is what I'm in, right, is the mind of the adept, right, debasing the mercy seat, which is clairvoyance, and using the power of their mind to try to destroy someone, right, to try to give them diseases, to try to kill them with their mind. That's right. Right? And he can always deny. He'll always deny. It's sad how prepared he is to lie forever. Right? But he's been using his mind per the wisdom he stole from me, right, to do everything that he can to poison me with the destroying angel mushroom, to try to give me AIDS. And he sees it as psychological trauma. He laughs about it. It's funny to him. Right? And there's nothing I can do about it. Because if I take the same steps, no, he's going to send people to murder me. That's it. That's it. So he's just being a bully, right? He's just stealing wisdom from me and going, oh, ha, 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 yeah, we'll do that. Like he's a child in his mind. And all he can do is lie and say I'm insane. So, it's really upsetting. It's really sad. Because all he has to do is move on. Right? You pay me, you don't pay me, who cares? Right? But if this is the point that I'm making right now, right, is that if he's prepared, if he's ready to move on, right, if he's actually ready to bring this to a conclusion, right, then he would reach out to me. Right? That every day that we persist in this way, it compounds upon the idea that he seeks my death, that he wants me to die. Right? And he plagues my mind with awful visions of evil whenever he wants. Whenever he wants. It's a joke to him. Right? So, we're approaching May the 28th, or not May, but September the 28th in due time, which is when he gets his Lifetime Achievement Award, and I live in palpable fear. Right? And this is why I'm writing Alan Moore, right? That he's gonna do awful, evil, degenerate things to me constantly. Right? That whole time. He's not gonna do it. He's gonna be on stage going, oh yeah, oh cool, Reservoir Dogs, oh what a badass I am, cool. Right? And he's gonna pay, right, this degenerate that works for him. There's two people. He's got a hot assistant and her partner, whatever his name is, they work for him. And he gets off on being evil, for sure. It's a joke. It's a joke to all of them, but to this guy, for sure. Right? Or it's all him. But it's not all him. Right? Because, right, if you recall, right, I discussed how during Khan, he did the same thing. Right? Where he had people torturing me, making my life miserable and being evil while he was on stage yucking it up. Right? Because our connection is so strong, right? And again, this is their doing. It's not my doing. I didn't spend hundreds of hours remote viewing me, knowing that I was never going to hang out with me, right? That's what they did, and that's their arrogance, right? That's their hubris. That they said, oh no, we'll convince this. He told all of them, oh, it'll be easy. It'll be easy, just 2 months, 3 months, and then he'll blow his brains out. Right? So, see what's good in your life. Right? Know that life is not an accident. We all come into the world under an orderly, structured design. Right? In all instances of clairvoyance is the mind of the adept tapping into the non-locality of the conscious field, which exists perpetually in a state of rest in every cubic centimeter of space. Right? Quentin Tarantino is a dangerous, evil man who seeks my life with his every breath. Right? I have a scene that he's using in his newest film, and he's hoping, right, praying, conspiring with his every breath to see that I'm no longer living so that he can have his scene for free, right, because I heard him at Tribeca, right? And so it's one thing to say, oh, that guy's crazy, right? That's right? You could tell everybody at Sony that, right? You could tell everybody at WME that, right? You could put it on paper and send it to me. Right? And say, oh, that's, right? Oh, no, you blew it. That was your shot. You signed this NDA. Right? But to say, oh, he's crazy and then conspire to make me crazy, that's the pinnacle of evil. Right? That's the ugliest evil conspiracy, right, that anyone will allow. Right? And so for Sony and William Morris Endeavor, right, to kiss his ass and say, oh, well, you know best, Quentin. Okay, sure, you're handling it. Right? Is a testament to how fucking cowardly they are. Right? I could have just been a loser forever. Right? If he was cool, right, he would have paid me a fair market value for my scene, made me sign a non-disclosure agreement, and moved on. Right? Instead, he created this diseased, pathological relationship that all involved with must reckon with forever. Right? Not for a day, not for a week, forever. Right? And so we're talking about it. Right? I can't stop him being evil. I can't control that. There's nothing I can do about that. I can't defend myself in the way that he is being offensive towards me. right? Because if I go on the offensive, he'll murder me. Because it's a dangerous, ugly, evil game. And I'm a savage, psychic clairvoyant. And if I want to destroy someone, I know exactly what the fuck to do, right? I live with the light of God in my heart, right? I live with an ethical standard, right? No one's ever been more deserving. But I don't want to die, right? He has $300 million. He knows where I live, right? This is my point, where he's just being a bully. He's just being an evil, degenerate bully. That's like, oh, ha, 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 look how fucking cool I am. Like, yeah, take that, dude. Like, you fucking, oh, you want to think about what can possibly be done to you? Like, yeah, I'm going to do all that. Like a 12-year-old, right? Like, he's not a cool guy, right? And as long as we persist in this way, we're mortal enemies, and that's it. So pray for me, right? I would say pray for him. He doesn't see anything that's good in his life. He doesn't focus on anything that's good in his life, right? But pray for me, for sure, right? Pray to bring this to an amicable resolution, right? If he's ready to move on, then he's ready to talk to me, right? If they're ready to move on, they're ready to talk to me. So, right? God bless. See what's good in your life. Uplift your soul to God, which is not a creature. There's nothing to pray to, right? So the lesser mysteries is the question, right? But the greater mysteries is the answer, right? There's one principle that the guiding light of God operates on, and that's love and giving, right? That you can never know why, right? But you can know what it is, which is love. And you can exert that in your heart, in your mind, in all of your actions, right? And so that's why we're where we are, right? Because I was there alone at Tribeca, right? There was no one there with me. I looked to Quentin, and he stuck his nose up at me and turned his back on me, so I did the same thing. So, let me know what you think. God bless.